June 6, 1968. A humid night along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, near the Laotian border. The jungle is awake long before dawn. Cicadas scream from the black canopy. Moist air clings to sweat-soaked uniforms. In a narrow clearing, a Viet Cong platoon lies hidden beneath woven leaf nets and cut branches, backs pressed into the earth, breath held in the dark. Private Pham Van Loc, 20 years old and proud of the scar on his forearm from his first firefight, runs his hand one last time over his rifle. It is a Chinese-made Type 56 cousin of the Soviet AK-47, its wooden stock darkened by years of oil and grime. The stamped steel receiver is warm from his touch. The selector lever clicks under his thumb. He slaps a curved 30-round magazine into place. The spring inside complains with a dull metallic squeak. Among those 30 slender brass, cased 7.62mm rounds, one cartridge is not like the others. Its powder has been replaced with something far more violent, packed to look normal, waiting for pressure and flame. Locke does not know that. To him, it is just another round in another magazine, drawn from another captured crate stamped with red Chinese characters. Around him, the platoon tightens its circle. Their leader, an older cadre named Hai, crawls to the lip of the trail and peeks through a screen of leaves. Somewhere out there, to the south. An American patrol should be moving, feeling its way through the dark like a blind man with his hands out. The plan is simple. Let the point man pass. Let 2 more pass. Then open fire from 3 sides and vanish into the trees before the artillery can answer. You can almost feel the tension in the damp soil under their elbows. Mosquitoes whine at ears. Someone muffles a cough against a sleeve. A Soviet-made RPD light machine gun lies ready on a bipod. Belt laid out in a careful arc. Grenades rest like dull green fruit beside bare feet. Minutes stretch. The jungle noises ebb and rise again. Then, faint at first, comes the soft click of metal on rock. Boots, a murmur of English, broken by static from a radio. Hai raises his hand. Fingers spread. Wait. The first American shape passes the ambush point. A shadow with a helmet and a rifle, close enough that Locke can see the dark patch of sweat on the small of the man's back. 1. Another follows, then a third. Hai's hand chops down. Locke squeezes the trigger. The first shots are normal. The rifle bucks into his shoulder, spits fire from its muzzle, the sound of 7.62 rounds cracking through the night. Other rifles join in, a ragged sheet of noise that tears the jungle's silence to pieces. Muzzle flashes bloom among the trees. An American shouts something you cannot quite catch. Then Locke's betrayer arrives in the chamber. The hammer falls. The primer ignites. But inside that one cartridge, the powder is wrong. It does not burn with the gentle, controlled violence that shoves a bullet down the barrel. It detonates. All at once, a brutal spike of pressure caged in thin steel. The receiver of the Type 56 splits like a tin can hit by a hammer. The trunnion cracks. The bolt slams backward as if kicked by a giant. In the flash of a heartbeat, it becomes a shard of metal driven straight toward Locke's face. There is a white, hot burst of light, brighter than any muzzle flash he has ever seen. The sound is wrong, too. Not the staccato bark of a rifle, but a deep, wet bang that you feel in your chest more than you hear with your ears. For a moment, the others think an American grenade has landed among them. Dirt and leaf litter leap into the air. An acrid chemical sting rolls through the clearing, stronger than the usual smell of gunpowder. When the smoke clears, Locke is on his back. The shattered remains of his rifle lie across his chest, twisted metal and splintered wood. Blood mixes with oil on the receiver shards. One of his comrades stares, frozen, at the ruin where the stock meets the mangled chamber, at the way the steel has peeled outward like the petals of a deadly flower. Hai's first thought is sabotage. Maybe a careless comrade. Maybe a bad batch from some corrupt quartermaster back in the rear. He has seen misfires, ruptured cases, cracked stocks, but never this. Never a rifle that tried to kill its own shooter in a single shot. Above the chaos, the fight still rages. The RPD chatters. Americans dive for cover. Tracer rounds carve red lines through the trees, yet inside the ambush position, fear of a new and invisible enemy begins to bloom, quiet and cold, in the men's chests. No one here knows that far beyond the tree line. In the shadows, other eyes were waiting for exactly this blast. That someone not wearing a Viet Cong uniform has been listening for the sound of a rifle exploding from the inside out and smiling in the dark. Hours earlier that same day, on the other side of the border, the jungle sounds different. Less gunfire, more rotor wash. A UH-1 slick squats on a red dirt landing zone choked with dust, its blades chopping the air into a thunderous blur. Around it, a handful of men in tiger-stripe camouflage crouched low, hands clamped on their boonie hats, faces streaked with sweat and grime. They wear no obvious patches that say who they are. No big unit crests, no division insignia, just blackened dog tags tucked under shirts and small American flags sewn beneath pockets where no one will see them. Staff Sergeant Mike Danner, MACV-SOG recon team leader, checks his car, 15 one last time, then slings it across his chest and turns to the man holding the green metal ammo can. The can is stenciled with neat yellow letters, but the paint is scuffed. The lid taped over with strips of black cloth to stop it from rattling. "You sure about this batch?" Danner shouts over the engine noise. The other man, a civilian with short hair and a calm, tired face, nods once. His name is Mr. Harris, though everyone knows that is not the name on his birth certificate. He works with people who do not like their titles spoken out loud. Pulled them from yesterday's lot. Harris yells back. All checked. Every third round in the middle of each magazine. They look perfect. Danner flips the lid. Inside, like treasure in a pirate chest, lie magazines and loose 7.62 by 39mm cartridges. Their lacquered steel cases and blunt copper-colored bullets, indistinguishable from any others that have flooded into the war from China and the Soviet Union. Each one has been opened with a tiny, precise cut at the case mouth, its original propellant removed. In its place, hand-packed by ordnance men behind locked doors, is a high-brisance explosive that reacts to a rifle chamber like a grenade fuse to a match. If you hold one in your palm, it is impossible to tell it from the rest. Weight, smell, shine, all the same. Only the man who sealed it knows the difference. Danner snaps the can shut. All right, we plant them. You folks take the credit. Harris gives a thin smile that never reaches his eyes. We do not want credit. We just want them to start doubting their own guns. Minutes later, the slick lifts away, leaving the recon team standing at the edge of the jungle. 6 Americans in tiger stripes, 4 indigenous troops in green uniforms with scarf-wrapped necks and French carbines on their shoulders. They vanish into the trees like they have done a dozen times before, following an invisible path toward the Ho Chi Minh Trail. For 2 days they move like ghosts. They march by compass and memory, pausing at streams to drink from canteens, stepping in the footprints of supply porters to hide their own. Overhead, jets roar past now and then, hunting trucks and storage areas along the trail. The recon men want no part of that fight. Their war is quieter, nastier. On the second night, they find what they have been promised. A way station hidden just off the trail, bamboo racks stacked with crates. A dugout shelter roofed with logs and earth. A small cooking fire gone cold. The enemy has pulled back only hours before. Half-empty boxes lie open, marked with red Chinese characters. Inside, Wooden dividers cradle bricks of AK magazines and bundles of loose rounds wrapped in waxed paper. Danner raises his fist. The men fan out. Security first, then they go to work. With gloved hands and red-filtered flashlights, two of the Americans kneel by the crates. They open existing paper bundles, slide out pristine magazines, and slip in a few that have been doctored in the rear. They tuck individual sabotaged cartridges into otherwise clean handfuls of ammunition and wrap the paper tight again. Every move is deliberate. The trick is balance. Too many bad rounds and someone in a rear area might notice. A cart driver, an armorer, a suspicious officer. Too few and you never get the payoff. Danner glances at his watch, listening to the night. Crickets. A distant thump that might be artillery, might be thunder. No voices. No boots. 5 more minutes, he whispers. Then we go. He cannot see the faces of the men who will one day open these crates. He does not know lock or high, or the exact patch of jungle where one of these rounds will finally meet a firing pin. To him, this is math and risk and orders on a clipboard from people with stars on their shoulders. But as he watches his men slide one last sabotaged magazine into an open crate, he cannot help the thought that creeps in at the edges of his mind. When that round goes off in somebody's hands, it is not going to feel like strategy. It is going to feel like his finger, his decision, pulling the trigger for them. They seal the last crate, erase their tracks as best they can, and fade back into the jungle. Behind them, in the dark, the poisoned ammunition waits. The ambush near the Laotian border ends in chaos. The Americans, stunned by the sudden blast in the enemy line, pull back under covering fire. Flares pop overhead and paint the canopy in hard white light. For a moment, the jungle looks like a black and silver photograph. Every leaf frozen, every branch etched in stark contrast. Then the light fades and the darkness swallows everything again. By the time the last M16 shot fades, Locke's platoon is dragging bodies into the undergrowth. Some are American. One is Locke. He is not dead. Not yet. A jagged shard from the rifle's receiver has torn across his cheek and nose, carving a furrow that glistens with blood and bone. His right eye is gone. His left squints blindly through the swell of torn flesh. The others cut away the rifle sling, push the twisted weapon aside, and press rags to the wound while he tries to breathe through the bubbling in his throat. High kneels over the shattered Type 56. He picks up the main piece of the receiver by 2 fingers, as if it might still bite him, and turns it toward the faint glow of a covered flashlight. The chamber looks peeled open from the inside. Steel has folded outward. The barrel has bulged near the trunnion. This is not a simple overcharged round that split a case. This is violence from within. More like a mine than ammunition. A younger fighter whispers, "It is American trick ammunition." Another snarls, "Do not be stupid. The Americans cannot touch our supply line like that." It is bad quality from the Chinese, but even as he says it, his voice trembles. They wrap Locke's face as best they can and move before the artillery comes. Behind them, the twisted rifle lies half buried in the leaves. A mute accusation pointed at no one in particular. Days later, in a rear area deeper inside Laos, the story arrives before the wounded man. A political officer, Comrade Kwai, sits in a dugout lit by a single battery-powered lamp, listening as a courier breathlessly recounts the ambush. He has heard similar reports already. A rifle exploding in a man's hands near Dak To, a machine gun that blew its feed cover apart along the Cambodian border, killing the assistant gunner and blinding the gunner. Each time, shells from different batches, different crates, different routes. At first, the reports were chalked up to poor maintenance or bad luck. Corroded barrels, mud in the bore, a cracked trunnion that someone ignored. But now there are too many, too close together. "Show me the weapon," Kwai says. The courier produces a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside lies another ruined Type 56, its metal bent outward like melted tin. Someone has scratched a small note into the stock with a knife. Comrade Than. May he be avenged. Kwai runs a finger along the ripped metal. He knows rifles. He has fired everything from ancient French MACV-SOGs to the newest Soviet AKs funneled down from the north. He has seen accidents. Nothing like this. He exhales slowly. This is sabotage. The word hangs in the air. Heavy. If it is sabotage, comrade, the courier says carefully, then our supply line is penetrated. Perhaps in the south. Perhaps farther north. Kwai does not answer. He is already imagining the commissar meetings, the questions from Hanoi, the accusations that will curl through units like smoke. Had someone been careless with captured American explosives near the crates? Had someone in logistics been bribed by a traitor? Or, more frightening, had the enemy reached out unseen and touched their most sacred object in this war, the rifle each man trusts more than his own heartbeat? That night, at a way station mess line, the rumors begin to change shape. A porter refuses to take cartridges from a freshly opened crate. He insists on cartridges from his old pouch instead. A squad leader orders his men to keep 3 magazines they know are safe and to pass the rest to newly arrived replacements. A cook swears he saw a crate with strange English letters burned into the underside. And by morning his story has spread 3 stations down the trail. Out on the line, men stare at their ammunition with new suspicion. Some tap rounds on their helmets, listening for a difference in sound that does not exist. Others hold cartridges to the light, searching for a mark or a scratch that would betray the hidden enemy sleeping in the brass and somewhere in the jungle. Another sabotaged round rides in the magazine of a rifle, patient as a snake in a hollow log, waiting for the next man who trusts his weapon without question. Kontum, Central Highlands. A hot afternoon turns the base into a shimmering mirage of dust and corrugated metal. In a windowless room behind a sandbagged wall, a tape recorder whirs softly. The air smells of coffee gone bitter on a hot plate and the ghost of cigarette smoke ground into plywood desks. Major Alan Keefe leans over the machine, headphones clamped to his ears. A Vietnamese linguist sits beside him, notepad ready, listening to the thin, crackling voice coming in from far away. It is an intercepted transmission, pulled from the hiss of enemy radio traffic by a listening post halfway across the country. The voice is urgent, clipped. The linguist scribbles, then speaks in English. He says their rifles are failing, exploding. He says, "We suspect enemy tampering with ammunition in supply crates near Route 922. Keefe raises an eyebrow. He actually said tampering. Yes, sir. Tampering. Keefe pulls the headphones off and lets them rest around his neck. For a moment, the only sound is the faint click of the tape reel and the distant thump of helicopters outside. On the desk in front of him is a file folder stamped in thick black letters, Eldest Son. Inside are photographs of twisted metal, exploded AK receivers, and RPD machine guns blown apart along the feed tray. There are field reports from SOG recon teams, ordnance lab notes, and careful estimates from intelligence officers about how many enemy casualties might be tied to the sabotaged rounds. He flips to one report marked Priority Training Range, Southern Laos. An NVA unit had been drilling new recruits. The instructor, a veteran sergeant, took position behind an RPD, barked commands, and squeezed the trigger for a demonstration burst. The gun fired 2 rounds. Then the receiver burst open like fruit under a boot. The assistant gunner died on the spot. 3 recruits lost eyes to flying steel. The survivors stood in stunned silence, staring not at the bodies, but at the weapon that had turned Judas. Keefe remembers the line from the field officer's commentary, written in dry, careful script. Morale extremely affected. Recruits refuse to fire belts from same crate. The door opens and Harris from Ordnance steps in. Still in his short-sleeved shirt, tie loosened, a sheen of sweat on his forehead from the walk across the compound. He closes the door with deliberate care. "Intercept from this morning," Keefe says, tapping the folder. They are starting to say it out loud now. "Sabotage," Harris sinks into a chair. "Then we are on borrowed time." They both know the rules of Eldest Son. Only a few rounds per crate. Never whole boxes. Never obvious patterns. Make every tampered cartridge look like it came straight from a friendly factory. The goal is not to blow up as many guns as possible at once. It is to make the enemy distrust every piece of ammunition they touch. And it is working. But if the North Vietnamese ever confirm that the Americans are doing this deliberately, they will respond. They will change handling procedures, segregate suspect lots, maybe even stop using captured ammunition altogether. Worse, they might parade the damaged weapons for journalists and foreign observers. Call it proof of American barbarity. Turn a quiet psychological needle into a loud political hammer. "How many rounds have we put out there now?" Keefe asks quietly. "That we have not heard from yet." Harris shrugs, eyes on the photographs. "Thousands. Some may never fire. Some may cook off in a rear depot and just look like bad storage. Some are in magazines riding in the jungle right now, waiting for the first squeeze of the trigger." There is a long pause, thick as the heat. "You still sleeping all right?" Keefe asks. Harris gives a crooked grin. "I sleep better than the guys on point in the Aishao. But I will be honest. Major, every time I load powder in one of those cases, I see a face I will never meet." Keefe closes the folder. "If it keeps some of our boys from getting hit, I can live with it." Outside, a helicopter roars low over the roof, rattling the fluorescent tubes. Somewhere beyond the perimeter, beyond the tree line and ridge lines and the haze of distance, a Viet Cong fighter checks his magazine, slaps it against his palm, and pushes it home with a satisfying click. He has heard the rumors. He has seen the fear in other men's eyes. But when the patrol steps off and the jungle closes around them, there is only the familiar weight of the rifle in his hands, and the hope that his weapon is still his ally, not the enemy's invisible hand on the trigger. For now, Eldest Son remains a whisper, a ghost in the supply line, killing not with bullets, but with doubt. Near Khe Sanh, early 1969. The morning fog hangs low over the hills, a grey curtain draped across the trees. In a clearing hacked from the jungle, an NVA training company stands in 3 neat ranks, rifles at the shoulder, boots damp with dew. Comrade Captain Le Min walks the line like a schoolteacher, his hands clasped behind his back. He stops at each soldier, checking posture, grip, muzzle discipline. He remembers when their army had to scrounge for every weapon, when half a squad might share 3 rifles. Now crates of Type 56s and RPDs arrive in steady streams down the trail, and new men like these can be given guns the moment they learn to march. Yet lately, every crate feels like a question. On a bamboo table nearby, boxes of ammunition sit open. Strips of cloth hold stacks of magazines. Loose 7.62 by 39mm rounds gleam dull in the pale light. A political officer stands beside them, watching, his jaw tight. In his breast pocket is a folded pamphlet from higher headquarters, warning of possible sabotage by the enemy directed at ammunition stocks in the southern theaters. They have all heard the stories now. A squad at Lang Vei whose machine gun exploded on its first burst. A veteran sergeant in the Aishao Valley whose beloved AK split apart in his hands during a firefight, taking 3 fingers with it. The men speak of these incidents in low voices, as if saying the words too loudly might summon the same fate. Today, we train with ammunition from approved lots only, Captain Min announces. His voice is sharp, confident, inspected by reliable comrades. No one will question their weapon. Understood. A chorus of "understood, Comrade Captain," answers him. But some eyes flick toward the ammo table with a shadow of doubt. At the far end of the line stands a young soldier named Tuan, rifle held tight, heart thudding. He has been in the army for 2 months. His rifle is older than he is, the wood worn smooth by many hands. He has cleaned it 3 times in the last 2 days, running the oiled rag through the bore until it shone, checking the gas tube, the locking lugs, everything he can see. What he cannot see is inside the brass cases stacked in the crate. The first drill is simple. On command, each man will chamber a round. Fire once at the silhouette targets nailed to the berm, then re-engage on order. Instructors move behind the line, ready to correct posture and sight picture. A medic waits off to the side with his bag for the usual training range. Mishaps, twisted ankles, heat exhaustion, maybe a ricochet if someone is careless. Load, magazines slip into wells with familiar clicks. Charging handles are pulled back and released. Bolts strip cartridges from followers and drive them into chambers, seating them with a metallic snick. Tuan feels the round slide into place. He tries not to think of the rumors, but they crawl across his mind anyway. A comrade in his barracks had sworn he saw a rifle that had peeled open like a banana. The steel curled outward as if something inside had exploded with the force of a small bomb. Ready. Rifles rise. Fingers rest on triggers. A breeze stirs the fog, revealing the dark rectangles of the targets ahead. Fire! The line erupts. Dozens of rifles crack in near unison. A rolling slap of sound that chases the fog back toward the tree line. Bullets punch into wood and earth. Some targets jerk and spin on their posts. And then, near the center of the line, one sound is different. Not a crack, a boom. Deep, ugly. Wrong. A flash flares out from the side of one rifle instead of the muzzle. Metal fragments spin through the air. A man screams, high and raw. The soldier next to him is knocked sideways by a slap of hot air and steel, his cheek sliced open. The firing line breaks, men duck, some dropping their rifles. One stumbles back with his hands cupped to his face, blood seeping between his fingers. The instructor behind the ruined weapon stands frozen, staring at the twisted thing in the soldier's hands. The receiver is burst open, the top cover is gone. The magazine has split, cartridges scattered across the ground like spilled seeds. For several seconds, no one moves. Even the jungle seems to hold its breath. Then the political officer surges forward, shouting, "Cease fire! Cease fire! Cease fire!" The echoes of the last shots fade into a stunned silence. Later, as the wounded are carried away and the range is cleared, word spreads faster than any courier could run. Another rifle has betrayed its master. Another approved lot has proven untrustworthy. In the barracks that night, men strip their weapons again and again, as if cleaning the metal can chase away whatever invisible curse has seeped into the ammunition. Some secretly set aside a few cartridges they have used before, marking them with scratches, hoarding them like talismans. At a staff meeting that evening, Captain Min listens as headquarters orders tighter control of ammunition, new inspection routines, and political lectures about maintaining faith in the tools of revolution. He nods where appropriate. He repeats the slogans, but when he is alone, he unlocks a wooden chest, pulls out a captured American M16 and runs his hand along its black plastic stock. He has never liked the foreign rifle. Its small bullet, its unfamiliar magazines. Tonight, for the first time, he's not sure which weapon he trusts less. Late 1969. A gray rain falls over Kontum, turning the red dirt of the base into a thick, clinging paste. In the same windowless room where Eldest Son reports once stacked in neat piles, Major Keefe stands before a corkboard stripped nearly bare. The photographs of exploded rifles and twisted machine guns are gone, pulled down and shoved into classified boxes. The only thing left is the nail outline where the Eldest Son folder used to hang like a nameplate. On his desk, a new document lies open. Orders termination of sabotage program. He reads the language again. Concerns about political exposure, risk of enemy propaganda, potential conflict with the laws of war. The phrases are careful, polished. Nowhere do they mention the faces in the photographs. Nowhere do they mention Locke, or the sergeant behind the RPD, or the unknown men who had trusted their weapons and found explosives waiting instead. The door opens and Harris steps in. Rain dripping from his poncho. He glances at the bare board, then at the order on the desk. "So that is it," he says quietly. "That is it." Keith answers. "No more doctored rounds, no more field drops. Whatever is already out there will stay out there, but we will not make any more." Harris gives a small nod. His shoulders sag in a way Keith has not seen before. Some of the brass are calling it a success. Harris says, "They have their charts, incident reports, intercepts, NVA units delaying attacks while they check their ammo, training cycles disrupted, men refusing to fire certain belts. They say we got our money's worth." Keith looks at the empty board. "You think they are right?" Harris hesitates. "I think it hurt them. I think it saved some of ours. I also think every time a rifle blew, someone on our side got a little further from the line between soldier and something else." There is a long silence, broken only by the patter of rain on the roof. "What do you think happens now?" Harris asks. "Now." Keith closes the folder. "Now the rounds we already planted keep doing what they were built to do. A year from now, one might go off in some valley we have never heard of, and some kid in a faded uniform will learn that his rifle can betray him, and he will never know my name, or yours. He will just know that one shot changed the way he looks at every cartridge he touches. Far away along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the war slides into another season. Bomb craters fill with stagnant water. New branches grow over old blast marks. Men march south with packs and rifles. Stories, rumors. In a small base area tucked into a hillside, Comrade Captain Min sits under a tarp while the rain drums above. Before him, 14 soldiers wait for ammunition issue. Their faces are young, hard, scared. In the mud between them sits a crate of 7.62s by 39mm rounds that has traveled hundreds of kilometers from a factory he will never see, touched by hands he will never know. The political officer gives the usual lecture. Vigilance, discipline, check for corrosion, obey storage procedures, trust in the party and the tools of the revolution. He does not mention sabotage. He does not have to. The word is already heavy in every mind present. Min flips the crate lid back. Inside, brass cases shine faintly in the weak light. Somewhere among them, perhaps, lies a cartridge that once sat on a workbench in Kontum under Harris's careful hand. Or maybe this lot is clean. Maybe the poisoned rounds are already expended, their fury spent in other firefights, other training ranges. No one here can know. He reaches in, feels the familiar chill of metal against his fingers, and scoops up a double handful. For a moment, the weight seems enormous, far heavier than a few dozen grams of brass and lead. The men step forward one by one, helmets held out, pouches open, palms sweating. Tuan is among them, older now, a faint scar along his jaw from a flying fragment on the training range months before. He watches each round as if it might twitch. When Min drops cartridges into his hands, he feels his heart stutter. He wants to ask if this lot has been inspected twice, 3 times, but the words stick in his throat. Later, in the dark before an attack, he will lie with his rifle across his chest and thumb each cartridge in his magazine, counting them like prayers. He will remember the man whose rifle burst open on the range, the spray of blood and steel. He will picture American soldiers somewhere beyond the ridge, rifles of their own held tight, never wondering if their ammunition is their enemy. On both sides of the war, men will step into the jungle and pull triggers, believing or doubting, living with the choices made far behind the lines. Operation Eldest Son will vanish into classified archives and whispered footnotes. Its code name known only to historians and men who once taped green ammo cans shut in hot windowless rooms. Yet its true legacy will linger in the silent beat before a shot, in the way a hand hesitates for half a second on a charging handle, in the cold thought that passes through a soldier's mind. What if this next trigger pull is the one where the rifle decides it belongs to the enemy instead of to me?